Welcome to Fertility Village. This is your weekly live talk show where community and support come together. With rotating hosts, expert guests, and meaningful conversations, we're here to guide you through the highs and the lows of infertility. Whether you're searching for answers, seeking advice, or just looking for a special place to belong, Fertility Village is your space to connect, learn, and grow. Because it really does take a village, and we are here for you every step of the way. Thanks for joining. Hello, community. We are here today, another episode of Fertility Village Live. Tonight, I'm joined by Brandy Williams from Be Well with Brandy. Brandy specializes in gut health, fertility support through evidence-based nutrition and lifestyle changes. She's also walked her own path through recurrent pregnancy loss and a fertility journey, and now has a beautiful child. And so October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. So we're going to be talking both about Brandy's personal journey and the incredible work she's doing to support others. Brandy, welcome to Fertility Village Live. Thank you so much for being here and spending the next hour with us. Just let's kick it off. And I'm going to ask you if you can share a bit of your fertility journey and what led you to where you are today.
Sure. Thanks for having me. So I was on my fertility journey for about 10 years. My husband and I were married in 2013. We started trying to get pregnant in 2014. And so I had 7 recurrent miscarriages over that time. We did a round of IVF. In 2021, and ended up doing a transfer, and that didn't work. So it was a failed embryo transfer for my first live transfer. And that was my issue wasn't getting pregnant. It was staying pregnant. So I was actually quite devastated with the transfer that didn't work, because we had only had 2 embryos that were chromosomally normal to transfer. So with the last embryo, it had already been, so many years of us trying that we thought that our best chance with the last embryo would be to do surrogacy.
Okay.
And so I was pretty deep in grief, I would say, and feeling the side effects of the obviously emotional, the emotional grief and then the physical side of a failed transfer, coming off medications. And I was really feeling down. So my husband really kind of took over there and started doing, the work we need to do for finding a surrogate and beginning that process with lawyers and all of that. And we ended up finding somebody through some of our connections with like a fertility group in pretty close to where we are, not through a surrogacy agency. Mm-hmm. Wonderful person. Went through, meeting on Zoom and all that stuff. And she ended up doing our last embryo, the transfer with our last embryo, and everything was going super well. The transfer worked. She got pregnant, and we went to the 8-week ultrasound with her, and that was great. And we ended up finding out the gender, because you were able to do that if you had a heartbeat at that time. In Canada, you're not allowed to find out the gender until like after that. So you can't know the gender before doing a transfer and all that stuff. So we were really excited, and I think I finally let myself get to the point where I was excited. I thought like, okay, this is going to work. This is it. We're going to do this, right? And this surrogate had never had a miscarriage before. And anyway, a few weeks later, I think it was around 11 weeks, she ended up miscarrying. So it was devastating for everyone involved, very complex emotionally, because you're now dealing with like another person. And we had, I guess, our eighth loss, and it was devastating. I didn't know what, I think one of the things with, when you're going through it, you never really know what your next decision is going to be until you're forced to make it. And so I never thought that I would do another round of IVF. I thought, I would do, and I didn't realize until you're in the IVF space, like how common it can be to do more than one cycle of more than one retrieval. And so I met with my clinic, and, basically it was going to be the same thing that we were going to do again. And I ended up chatting with somebody that I knew who knew about a doctor in Ontario. She had a client that had worked with her, and she had a similar story to mine with recurrent pregnancy loss, kind of more of a complex case.
Mhm.
And she ended up telling me her name was Dr. Garcia at Markham Fertility. And I just reached
Love
out. I know, I love her too. Just reached out and sent her an email, and literally she responded like super quickly, and was basically, I was out of province. So I'm from New Brunswick. So in Atlantic, Canada, out of province, a little more complicated, but she, after talking, she was willing to, you know, I said, we can come, we can work from home, we can, travel, work remotely, all of that stuff. Like we can make it work. We had family in Ontario at the time too. So we would have been able to like stay there. So she agreed to take me on as a patient. And I met with her, and I still wasn't like sure. It was just like meeting with her and trying to, see what she had to offer that might've been different, and get a feel for what her approach would be for my case. So met with her on Zoom because we were doing virtual because I was in New Brunswick. And, she really just was able to give me a few other options that weren't available to me at my other clinic. And that gave me a little bit of hope that, like, okay, if it was something different, like, I might be able to open myself up to like being able to try again, and push through and do another retrieval and all of that stuff. So we ended up doing a second round of IVF in, I think it was 2023. And we had a great retrieval. Really, I was, gosh, I'm trying to think, was I 39, 39, 38, 39, when we did the retrieval, and ended up getting 6 embryos this time. So same amount, very similar. The response was similar. The amount of eggs fertilized was similar, but the first embryo retrieval or the IVF retrieval that we did, we had a lot of chromosomal abnormalities because we did the PGT testing because of my age and my history of recurrent loss,
Mhm.
chromosomal issues possibly being one of the causes. With my first retrieval, 7 PGT tested embryos, only 2 were normal. And that was at that time below average of what was expected. So they thought
Mhm.
egg quality was an issue. That's what they said. It's an egg quality issue. So 2 years later, I'm 2 years older, we did things differently. I didn't really do anything different going into my first round of IVF, just kind of continued to live the way I was living because I was a dietitian, I ate healthy, I exercised, personal trainer, like all of those things. Um, so we just kind of went into it. And then for my second round, I did some more research, looked into gut health a little bit more, looked into what are the things that could be affecting egg quality for me. So looked into dietary things, alcohol, like lifestyle stuff, some of the things that I maybe could be doing to improve things, and also looked at, my husband as well for the sperm factor, the male factor. So we ended up doing a retrieval, had great results. So we ended up with 6 PGT normal embryos this time out of the 7 tested. So I was in shock. I remember Dr. Garcia calling me I was on my way to Shania Twain to go visit friends, and I
Mhm.
was expecting a call from her, and I wasn't expecting the results yet. And I ended up taking the wrong exit, and just being completely flustered because she called to give me the exciting news. So I felt like I won the IVF lottery. Literally, I could cry thinking about it, just thinking about that moment, and finally feeling like we had, I don't know, something go in our favor, and something go our way. So we ended up doing a transfer. Gosh, in October of 2023. I think our retrieval was in May. We did like an Emma Alice test.
Mhm.
Because we had 6 embryos, Dr. Garcia, we had talked about doing some immune testing because of the recurrent loss.
Mhm.
But she said because we had more embryos to work with, like and because like obviously I had a good retrieval, she thought maybe my body would be ready to do a transfer, and maybe we didn't have to do any of the immune testing. And so kind of talking about doing like a kitchen sink approach. So we did a modified natural transfer with letrozole. I have PCOS, stage 1 endo, so we had some endometrial lesions. Um, but no, not symptomatic for endo. I only knew about that because I had a septum surgery on my uterus in between all of this because I had a
Mhm.
on your uterus. And so we did a modified natural transfer with letrozole, and the first embryo that we transferred worked, and I now have a son who's 14 months old, which is still to this day really hard to believe and really surreal. But yeah, we had success finally after 10 years of recurrent loss and 2 rounds of IVF, surrogacy, all that stuff. So that's my story.
Wow, very, very long journey with a lot of
Yeah.
heartbreak and loss, but I mean, you made it to your son, which doesn't erase everything,
No.
but you have him here, which is phenomenal, fantastic. Going back to your recurrent pregnancy loss and navigating that, how did you navigate it? How did you navigate it emotionally and physically? And you're on all of these hormones, and your body, is pregnant, so you have the pregnancy hormones as well, and then you go through it so many times. How did you navigate that?
Oh. Um, so going through it, I think like, the first time it happened, I think some of the things that set you up to like deal with things, maybe it's tougher emotionally or physically, is really not knowing what to expect.
Mm,
Um, so I mean, it was like, if I look back, like mentally and physically, it's exhausting. Um, Physically, you're going through a lot, not just the loss itself, but, the hormones. Like I know what it's like to feel pregnant, to be pregnant, to have the nausea, the first trimester symptoms, and then waiting around, right?
mhm,
Knowing, okay, like we don't see a heartbeat, come back in 2 weeks. So kind of that 2-week wait stuff. It was a roller coaster. We've seen a heartbeat before, and then, the next day I'm literally, having, signs of miscarriage. So you're feeling confused. I felt really lonely. I talked obviously to my husband. He was an amazing support. I wasn't sharing openly in the beginning. I wasn't talking about it on Instagram, because again, it's one of those things that I think then it was 2013, 2014. I was on Instagram, I think, but like I wasn't talking about that stuff. I think we were sharing more photos and like all of that stuff. I think it was after my third one, I did start to share a little bit online just because I felt like it was a part of me now. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was like my story. I had changed. And I knew that, I just wasn't sure what was going to happen. So I did start sharing about it and talking about it. I felt like hiding it made it feel worse.
mm,
I had a lot of probably shame, you know, anger towards like your body and like, why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? So I don't know if I always coped well with it in the beginning. Like my coping strategies maybe weren't the best. I maybe tried to disassociate a little bit, stay busy. Um, I didn't go to counseling right away, but I did do counseling later on.
mhm,
Before this transfer, I went and did some EMDR therapy,
mhm,
which I found actually really helpful. Kind of walking through, I think it was my first miscarriage, and really being able to process like how I was feeling. Um, but and I think some of the things I would do would, I'd plan something to look forward to. I was trying to find happiness within the grief that we were dealing with as well. Like I think that's something that I learned, that grief and still living a, a happy life to some extent is possible, if that makes sense too.
yeah,
but there's that pressure. You'd see other people having success. I had, my niece and nephew during that time, and I was pregnant, at the same time as my sister-in-law, and so you're reminded of those things. Milestones obviously were always tough, but I never felt anger towards people that, or
Mhm.
like I couldn't be around them, or I felt like my niece and nephew actually really helped me emotionally in a weird way. Like some people, again, not everyone will approach it that way. Some people, it's hard to be around children. It's hard to be
Yeah.
around, their niece and nephew, or everyone handles things differently. I found it really helpful. I spent a lot of time with them actually, and became really close with my niece and nephew because we didn't have kids. So we spent a lot of time with them. We prioritized traveling to see them, and we spent Christmas with them sometimes after. Again, like some people may not be able to do that, but that's what I did. Spending time with them made me feel good because I love them and I love children. So uh, yeah, no, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but um, I I let myself. I think like because I had experienced so many miscarriages and the repeated loss. Like I think over time, I did things differently, and I needed to because it was compounded over time, and it really did feel like towards the end of it, like when I was getting older, I wasn't sure anymore. If our story would end up having a child, because not every story does. And
Yep.
I remember meeting with a counselor who was basically like, "What are you going to do if you can't have children?" And I just remember being like, "What do you mean? Like I'm going to, like, I'm not going to give up until I do, like."
Yep.
She was like, "Yeah, but what if you don't?" Like, and I had never at that time even considered what my life would look like without children.
Mhm.
I was in that almost toxic positivity, like stay positive, like it's going to happen, and if I believe it enough, it's going to happen. Um, but she made me kind of start to contemplate, like, okay, what do we want to do? Do we want to adopt? Do we want to what other avenues do we want to look at? What will our life look like? I've always wanted to be a mother.
Mhm.
I've always wanted to have a family, and that's what I saw for myself in terms of like purpose. And so I was somebody that always driven by like having a purpose in life and all of that stuff. So she made me kind of think about the other side of it and what we wanted to do. So my husband and I ended up doing like adoption training to see if that was going to be something that we wanted to do, just to do the training. And he wasn't entirely sure. I was pretty sure that I would want to, but you need to go through the training to see if that would be a viable option. And yeah, so I think sometimes my coping mechanisms were maybe I say unhealthy, but like they're probably normal, just
Mhm.
watching TV maybe a little too much, or just like laying on the couch, or um,
Whatever you needed to do to get through.
just to feel like I didn't have to think about, the emotional side, and
Yeah.
physically. I think I was just staying busy with work, and trying to stay busy with friends,
Mm.
um, uh, and just kind of push through that a little bit. And I think later on in the process, I let myself feel things a little bit more. So early on, I would kind of, go, 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 like mask it, like, keep moving forward and live your life. Later on, when it started to feel like, oh my gosh, we're running out of time, I had to process, my emotional side of recurrent loss a lot differently,
Yeah.
and take the time to feel.
Yeah.
And that was hard. That
It's
was hard.
very yeah. Sometimes it's easier to avoid, and
Right.
then when you take it all in, you're like, "Whoa, I don't know if I want all of that all at the same time," but it is important to feel, and the only way to the other side is to go through, right?
Mm.
Um,
One book
so
that's helpful, just in case it's helpful to anybody else, just in the space of grief, was "It's Okay That It's Not Okay."
Mhm.
I read that later, and I feel like it tied in some of the things that I was feeling that I didn't have validation on, like where I had like brain fog, or I just wasn't
Mm.
thinking clearly, like some of the again, like physical sides of grief that I didn't maybe recognize were grief. You know what I mean? Like, and it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, this person's like explaining exactly how I'm feeling. And wow, I didn't realize that this was connected to like what I've gone through or what I'm going through now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And now, obviously, you had your son, you had a pregnancy after so many losses. How how was it like being pregnant? Because obviously, anybody with infertility knows that your pregnancy is always probably more anxious and just waiting for the other shoe to drop. How was that pregnancy for you that brought you your son?
Mm. Um, I didn't feel like I could let myself get 100% like it's going to happen until he was here.
Yeah.
I had a really supportive OBGYN here in the city that told me you can come and see me weekly. I know that that's amazing. I know that that's not, everybody's history, but we were really, really lucky to get a really great OBGYN in the city that was very compassionate and
Mhm.
empathetic. And I didn't do that. I didn't go weekly, but I think that if I did get nervous, if I did need an extra check, she was there to help me. I think what I did was I just took it one step at a time. So we would celebrate, the positive pregnancy test we celebrated, and then I'd get nervous again and anxious
Yeah.
again shortly after. And then you'd get the scan and be anxious before it and wouldn't sleep. And then if that was okay, we'd celebrate it. And then I would get anxious again. So it was nerve wracking. It was hard to believe that like this could actually work because I've never had
Mm.
a full-term pregnancy. So getting through the first trimester was something I've never done. But then I was like, I remember having bleeding, which is actually really normal in pregnancy, but it's not normal for somebody that's all they've ever known is bleeding during a pregnancy, or seeing blood is always triggering and never normal to you if that's your history. Because I know some people will be like, well, that's normal. Like I bled all through. And I'm like, I know, but that's like, that to me is like, I'm going to pass out, if I, seeing that, makes you weak to your knees, like that's how I felt when I saw it. And so I went and was checked, and I was sure, I think at that time, I was like, no, here it is, right? Here we go. Like, we're excited. Like we do have hope. And part of me felt like this is it, but also after what happened with the surrogacy, I was never going to let myself get, fully to the point where I knew for sure that this would happen, just to protect myself. It was, it was really, really hard. I think when I got to about 20 weeks and I started to feel the kicking, that
Mm.
was my daily reassurance that things were okay. And if I didn't feel it, and luckily for me, I did, but I knew that if I was anxious about it, or if I didn't feel something one day, I could always go to my OBGYN or go and get checked. Like I knew I had that support. And you can go to fetal maternal medicine. I was also being followed by them, who are also, again, very kind and didn't have to do that because there was nothing wrong in the pregnancy, but they let me come once a month to do ultrasounds and all that stuff.
Because of your history.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and honestly, the doctor offered that, and so I feel like from where, I don't know, some of the care around miscarriage was when I first started,
Mhm.
there was a lot more compassion and empathy and understanding and maybe more training and awareness around it, to have support like that. I'm not sure if that happened in, 2013, it would have been the same. So I was lucky to have a great team here, a great family doctor, a great OBGYN. Um, but you're never going to feel good
Mhm.
or as the same as somebody that, once you've had a miscarriage, like you're always going to be anxious and nervous and ready for, something to go wrong. Um, and so until he was born, that was when I felt like I could finally, breathe, or like breathe a sigh of relief. And then it's just, you still don't believe it, right? Like even to this day, sometimes I'm like, if my son, he would go to my grandmother's for the night and I'd see him, then or sometimes you look at him and you just can't believe that I just can't believe I have a son, right? I can't believe that we were lucky enough to have that be, I guess, the like part of our story. I wasn't sure if that would, if that would be us. So
Yeah. Yeah, and now October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. What does this month mean to you personally after everything you've been through, your journey, the people that you help?
yeah, so I think, I'm working with clients personally that are that have dealt with losses. So I think holding space for other women or other families who are grieving or are silently, or openly. Some people are sharing, some people are not.
Yeah.
Kind of reminding them that they're not alone, or that they're, the way they're feeling is normal. Um, I have I have friends that have lost, or have had miscarriages. So just kind of trying not to forget about those, even if those people do have children now, or the ones that don't, just kind of holding space for them. I feel like for me, it's remembering, all of my losses, and being, super grateful, obviously, for the fact that we were able to have Jacob. I'll never take that, obviously, for granted. But it doesn't take away, I guess, what we've been through.
Mhm.
And I do get emotional about, our losses. But I think from being on the other side of it now, it's you look at it a bit differently. So it's more, for me, about the other people going through it now,
Yeah.
and being able to talk about, come on here onto the podcast and chat about it. Hopefully give people some sort of, some information that could be helpful. Hopefully, um, help people feel a little less alone. So whether they are sharing, or they're not, right? Just
Mhm.
letting people know that it's not their fault. Um, 'Cause a lot of people have a lot of, shame and guilt, and, blaming themselves. So, um, yeah, just kind of holding space for other people going through that, I feel like, for me, is um, what this month means for me now, more than anything.
Yeah, and on that note of supporting people, let's talk a little bit about Be Well with Brandy, because I think that is fantastic. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how your personal journey kind of influenced what you're doing today in your business.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been working in gut health for a long time, so probably over 10 years. I think I was interested in gut health because I struggled with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and kind of just went down the path of learning more about gut health. Obviously, the research in that space has exploded since, my initial interest in it. So
Mhm.
really just kind of becoming obsessed with understanding, like, why am I having symptoms? Like, why am I chronically constipated? Why do I have IBS flare-ups? Why can't I travel without having stomach pain?
Oh my God, we gotta talk later because it's like you're describing my life.
You
Oh
know, I
gosh.
don't have those things anymore, right? So IBS is generally there's something going on, whether it's, not enough of beneficial flora, maybe dietary components could be a part of it. So kind of looking at, I think my IBS is what led me into the gut health space, and beginning to help people in that space. And I loved it. And I felt like gut health was connected to so many other things, like
Mhm.
fatigue or brain fog. There was a lot of people that, again, just weren't feeling like themselves, were chronically bloated. Mental health, because I remember like how I felt when my stomach was bloated, or you had, you just felt anxious, you didn't feel like
Mhm.
yourself, or when you were symptomatic, when that stuff was happening. And then, like, as that went on, kind of understanding the connection between gut health and fertility, which made sense because gut health and, your microbiome is connected to so many chronic health issues. I think that's why I liked it, is because it, could touch on so many different things in the wellness space.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the epicenter of good health. A lot of people, are focused on eating well and what should I be eating, but if you're not digesting, absorbing, breaking down, your nutrients properly and absorbing them properly, you know, eating well, may not be, you're not able to extract all the benefits from, your diet.
Yeah.
And then looking at like the stress side of it as well. So, learning more about gut health, inflammation, the effect that your gut health has on hormone regulation, nutrient absorption, all that stuff. So I've focused on my own gut health prior to doing my second retrieval and transfer. So I did end up I do some stool testing sometimes. If it warrants, stool testing can be helpful. It's not the be all and end all. We have to look at history. We have to look at symptoms. We have to look at bowel movements. Like those are really deciding factors of what, a treatment plan might look like. But stool testing can help us identify certain things like what strains of probiotics might be more beneficial for somebody, because everybody, like a lot of people will just go in and take a probiotic, and based on your symptoms or your bowel movements, what strain you might recommend will differ.
Yeah.
So it's not just like any old probiotic kind of thing. And then looking at things like, a big thing I'll see is under eating, disordered eating, maybe some eating disorders in there that can also affect gut health as well. Which that would be like, we need to work on that separately, like obviously if that's an issue. So now I'm working with clients who have infertility, who are preparing for IVF, like a retrieval, or preparing for a transfer. So I have clients that maybe have recurrent implantation failure that want to just get a second opinion or want me to like review their case. So working in that space, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I get so stressed out worrying about my clients going through it. It's almost like you're putting yourself back in that. I want my clients to also have success, but never giving, a guarantee in this space. Is just like, if you haven't tried optimizing gut health, if this isn't something that you've tried to do before, I think it's important. I think, I'm not saying it's going to be the one thing that fixes everything, because usually when we're looking at infertility or recurrent pregnancy loss, there's not one thing. There's usually multiple things that could be going on. So kind of just looking at being an advocate for that person, looking through their history, looking through their symptoms, looking through their supplements, getting a second set of eyes, saying, why are you taking this iron supplement? Well, I've been taking it for 2 years, and well, do we still need to take that, right? So sometimes getting people off some of the stuff that they're on. And then the other thing with what I'm doing today is now I'm kind of getting into, because of Jacob, like the infant gut microbiome as well. So it's kind of gut health through a lot of the life stages now, I would say, is what I'm kind of working in now. So gut health kind of underlies everything. And so with the IVF infertility stuff, sometimes it's gut health, but sometimes it's people have never met with a dietitian at all to even go through, their diet and lifestyle, just to see if there's anything or any smoking guns that could be affecting fertility. So maybe we can optimize fertility before needing IVF, right? And I've had clients successfully be able to get pregnant before like having to do IVF, because they were looking at things like diet and lifestyle, and trying to optimize sperm health as well. So looking at the male factor, because women bear a lot of I think the reason or the blame, like why, they can't get pregnant, and the male factor is 50% of the equation. So, also going through diet, lifestyle, smoking, alcohol, drugs, to see because a lot of people don't know that's impacting things if they've never been told that. We can't assume that people know that, because a lot of times if you're getting a fertility workup, diet and lifestyle aren't often discussed. It might be now in more cases, but I'm seeing a lot of times where you know, someone might still be smoking and doing an IVF retrieval, and it's like, oh, like
Yeah.
that we might want to quit smoking
Mhm.
before doing your next one, because here's the evidence on what that could be doing.
Yeah.
Especially if, and that doesn't mean, and people say that and be like, well, this person smoked and I was able to get pregnant and this person did this drug, there's all kinds of stories of people that don't have the best diet and lifestyle and are able to
And
have
are
children,
able to do.
but we're not in that, when you're looking at infertility and you're looking at IVF, we're not that, those people. So it's not normally one thing.
Mhm.
I think normally it's just kind of assessing all the things that it could be. Yes, this could be part of it. No, you're good here, right? Your vitamin D is good. You've got like your iron levels are great. Your diet's looking really good, or your diet needs some work. A lot of times with diet, it's very common that women are under eating. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, maybe. I'm talking
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I'm kind of just blabbing. A lot of women are under eating. That's like a common thing that I'm seeing, and that can, in and of itself, affect menstrual cycles.
Mhm.
So that's the first thing that I check, is kind of looking to see how many calories are you consuming, what's your activity level like. I don't love tracking and all that stuff for like regular clients that maybe aren't looking at fertility stuff, but because that can affect your menstrual cycle and your hormones, I do like to have that objective information of a little bit of tracking.
Mhm.
That also lets me see what the macros are looking like. So is somebody eating enough carbohydrates? What's protein looking like? What about their fat intake? And how much fiber are they getting? I've done fertility courses around nutrition for fertility. So it's looking at, a carb intake, you want it above 40%. Protein, you want to be getting generally protein from animal and plant-based sources. So both. There's a big thing right now in the fertility space and just on the internet in general about protein, 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 protein. And so also looking at, how does someone like to eat? What are some of the things that they're doing that they maybe have heard on the internet, right? And they think are the right things to do, because it's confusing out there. And your algorithm, if you're looking, is going to start
Mhm.
certain information. So it's going to be confusing. So trying to cut out some of that noise and give someone the confidence that, like, no, it's okay to do this. Like, it's okay to eat some cake on the weekend. It's okay to, like, your diet doesn't have to be 100% perfect. You don't have to follow a strict keto diet. You don't have to follow a carnivore diet. You don't have to eat I had somebody do an all meat diet once because somebody told them that that's what they should do. So trying to give them the evidence-based information around diet, but also looking at the individual to see, like, how do you like to eat, right? And um, like, do you need to be doing something so extreme? There might be an easier way.
Yeah. And so, are there any common myths that you can debunk right now for us about nutrition and fertility?
So I see there's a lot, I would say.
Top 2, top
Oh
3.
gosh, oh gosh. Okay, let's go through a few. I think the gluten-free, dairy-free is a big one. You need to go gluten-free and dairy-free. I just saw that again today being recommended. And to somebody that's already had celiac testing done, seems to tolerate dairy well. And maybe if they didn't, like, it's not eliminating dairy, but it's again working on the gut microbiome so that maybe they can tolerate dairy, or going lactose-free because they might just be lactose intolerant. Um, that's a really common one. That doesn't mean that some people shouldn't be gluten-free, and there are some people. I was gluten-free in my pregnancy because there's celiac in my family, and I wasn't able to get celiac tested before the transfer to see if, because celiac could, if you have a gene for it, it could develop at any time.
Yeah.
There is some evidence to support that if you do have undiagnosed celiac, that it could cause repeated pregnancy loss. So I made the decision to go gluten-free, but I made sure that I was still eating gluten-free whole grains.
Got
It
it.
was new. So making sure that I was doing gluten-free oats and gluten-free breads that contained, some fiber in it, whole grain rice, quinoa, like making sure that I wasn't just cutting out bread and not replacing it with something else too.
Yeah.
Um, so I think, if you're having digestive issues and you haven't been tested for celiac, that's worthwhile. And then if it's very rare that it would come back that somebody has celiac disease.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the endo space, going gluten-free for a period of time can help symptoms. There is some evidence to support that. But
Yeah.
there are also lots of people with endo that can tolerate gluten just fine, right? So those blanket statements, it really depends on the person, and
Like,
you
if
really
you have this, stop eating this and you're fine, kind
right,
of thing. Yeah.
exactly. So and the dairy-free thing, I was dairy-free for a long time because I thought dairy was bad for me. Even I fell, I would say, victim to some of the misinformation too, because I was desperate and I just was trying different things. I did low carb, I did keto. I was probably low carb the whole time I was trying to get pregnant because I always thought I had PCOS, so I need to be low carb. And we need carbohydrates to nurture our gut microbiome. Carbohydrates contain fiber, and fiber is one of the best ways to lower inflammation in the body. So if you're not digesting fiber properly, you need to work on your gut health, right? Because sometimes the good foods can cause a lot of digestive distress.
Yeah.
And if you are not tolerating the good foods, I would start working on your gut health so that you can slowly begin to tolerate different fibers. So sometimes it's an approach on how to do that. So gluten-free, dairy-free, that's a big myth I see. One that's bugging me right now, I think, and I see a lot of it, is the seed oil stuff. To the point where, I think olive oil is king. I think having some butter is okay. I think healthy fats from avocado and, avocado oil is great. Like, but to not have a certain product because there's a little canola oil in it, or to not have, to be avoiding things or scared of foods because they have seed oils in them now is I would say one of the things that's bothering me a lot, because people
Yeah.
have food fear around products that they could be using here and there, right?
Yeah.
We want to be reducing ultra processed food, but like,
Mm.
you can also have some processed food, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I think a lot of people in the fertility space think that they have to be 100% perfect, and there's no room for treats, there's no room for sugar, there's no room for seed oils, there's no room for anything, and they'll think that they're, harming their fertility. I've opened up my diet. I increased, I started eating dairy, I started eating more grains, I started eating more carbs. A lot of times people need to be adding in more stuff as opposed to taking it away.
Yeah.
Um, and people tend to be really excited when I'm like, no, you can have like some fast food, but like, don't do it every day, but like, it's
Yeah.
not going to destroy your fertility or your egg quality, or, immediately spark inflammation and destroy what you're doing at once. So I think there's a lot of black and white and not a lot of room for the gray area. And
Yeah.
again, unless you're meeting with somebody and being able to look at all of these factors and what do they like to eat? Somebody might be skipping breakfast, doing intermittent fasting, which is causing them to undereat, or avoid certain foods that are going to be, contain the nutrients that they need to support their fertility. Restriction can lead to more nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah.
So the seed oil thing's bugging me. So that's my number two. And then more supplements. I think that's another one that, more supplements, the better. Or what supplement do I need to take
Yeah.
to improve? What I do with supplementation is I need to know your health history first, right? Do you have PCOS? Do you have endo? We're dealing a lot with those things when we're looking at, maybe it's recurrent implantation failure. The diagnosis of endometriosis, as we know, can take a long time. There's a lot of people going through fertility treatments that don't know they have it. Diagnosing it isn't necessarily easy or accessible, because it can be a long wait time to even get that done if you have someone that agrees to send a referral, send you for a referral. But there are some evidence-based supplements that, may be helpful, but we need to be looking at diet first, lifestyle second, stress management. And stress in the fertility space, again, is like you have to be really careful with that too,
Yeah.
because you're going to be stressed, right? Like, you can't focus on stress management to the point of, like, if you are going through infertility and you're going through recurrent pregnancy loss, there's a certain level of stress that's always going to be there. But it's recognizing, like, okay, I need to be managing that, but it's normal that, I feel it and that it's present, and it's normal that I'm going to be anxious, but maybe when I'm more anxious and it's affecting my sleep, I bring the tools out of the toolbox to help manage my stress a little bit better. But some people are stressing too much about food, right? Or some things that they could take some of the stresses that they're experiencing off their plate. So kind of trying to help them feel confident that no, you don't need to do that with your diet. That's stressing you out. That's causing more stress. Like we don't need more of that.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's more is not always better. And sometimes there's a food option that you can do, right? Some people are taking vitamin C. It's very easy to get vitamin C through food, right? Some people are taking or just looking at blood work, right? Like let's look at your blood work first to see if there's a purpose for supplementing with extra vitamin D, right? So some people may not need to be supplementing with extra vitamin D, and some people may be taking vitamin D and not absorbing it properly. We see that a lot too. So you definitely want to optimize the blood work and do a review and evaluation of the supplements that you're taking. What can you replace with food? If you're taking an omega-3, which can be a great supplement to take when you're trying to conceive. Do you like seafood, right? Would you incorporate it in a little bit? And then, maybe you don't have to take a supplement of omega-3 as frequently. So just kind of get people off some of them, or getting them on the right ones based on the evidence. PCOS, myo-inositol would be really great. Melatonin's, a good one prior to embryo transfer. There's certain probiotics that could be really beneficial depending on someone's gut health or the history with like if there's any vaginal issues like bacterial vaginosis, or if we know anything about the vaginal or uterine microbiome, there could be a use for even antibiotics, right? So, kind of on a tangent again, but those are my some of the myths.
And give us one thing that people could do today to start supporting their gut health. One simple thing that everybody could do.
Start looking at your fiber, because normally when I'm assessing fiber, not even my fertility clients, like any client I'm working with, most people are not getting enough.
Yeah.
So you could do go to MyFitnessPal and track a few days and just kind of see what is my fiber. If you're getting 13 grams of fiber a day, we're looking at more like 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. And it can be a bit higher than that. You don't want to increase fiber quickly. So you kind of would want to assess what you're doing and then gradually increase your fiber intake. If you go from 13 to 30, you're going to feel bloated. You're going to feel uncomfortable. If you have gut issues and you're trying to increase fiber, before you actually fix your gut issues, what you could look at to help you is look at low FODMAP fiber sources.
Mm-hmm.
Low FODMAP fiber sources are going to be less likely to bloat your stomach and cause GI distress. So it's a nice way to, before you actually figure out okay, why am I not digesting fiber? Why are high FODMAP foods maybe causing bloating or stomach pain? Adding in more fruits and vegetables that are low FODMAP, or adding in certain grains that are low FODMAP to help boost up fiber are less likely to cause digestive issues. That's a lot of things. A lot of issues with people are low fiber, and then not enough diversity of plant foods. So there's not one type of fiber, there's multiple different types of fiber. And that's why a more diverse diet, a more varied diet, as opposed to eating the same thing over and over again. So if you're always having eggs in the morning, for an example, eggs are great. They're great for fertility. They have choline. They're something that I recommend for people to eat if it agrees with them, if they like them. But oatmeal is also great because it has beta glucan in it. So that's a different type of fiber. Eggs don't have fiber, right? So if you're having eggs, how can we add a little fiber to that plate?
Yeah.
Whether that's throwing in some spinach, doing an omelet, half an avocado, a whole grain bread, right? A lot of people are afraid of bread, but it can be a great fiber source.
I love bread.
What?
It is great.
I know, it's delicious.
It's delicious.
A lot of people are just missing out on an opportunity to add fiber if they digest it okay. Sometimes, again, like the whole gluten thing, if bread's bothering you, it might not be the gluten, it might be the FODMAPs, because bread is a high FODMAP food. So in people that have
Mm.
digestive issues, if you're like, oh man, I have pasta and I have bread and it bloats my stomach, you could try a gluten-free bread and you can try a gluten-free pasta, and that's low FODMAP, and it may work better for you again while you're trying to figure out what's going on. You don't want to get to the point where you're, again, restricting so many things or going low FODMAP for too long.
Yeah.
But it's a strategy that you can use while you're trying to increase fiber. That's a big thing. And then I think under eating too, just, I'm going to say that quickly because, I have clients too with digestive issues that might not be able to eat as much because their stomach doesn't feel well, right? But there are some people that are just not eating enough at all, and that will impact the nutrients that you're exposing yourself to. That will affect your hormonal system. Fiber is also going to help with estrogen clearance, and it helps
Mhm.
the estrobolome. It helps you excrete estrogen from the body. So if you're dealing with endo, fiber is really important because we want to be properly metabolizing estrogen. So I think that's a big thing, just because it's such a common thing. But you have to have caution, especially if you have like irritable bowel syndrome and digestive issues. I don't want people running out there and doing it and then being like, but I feel so sick and I feel so bloated. If
Yeah.
you're feeling sick and bloated, adding that stuff, add it slowly. I have clients right now adding a tablespoon of beans, like a tablespoon. Just do a tablespoon of beans in your salad. You're adding gauze, you're adding those are FODMAPs, you're adding them, but if you slowly acclimatize your gut to it, you'll hopefully be able to handle that over time as we're working on fixing the overall ecosystem of your gut.
All right. Okay. Did you hear that, people? A tablespoon of beans a day.
Like tablespoon. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna just veer off that a little bit before we wrap up, and I wanted to ask, in terms of giving somebody, if you could look back on your journey and you wish somebody would have told you a piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be that you would give to someone just beginning their fertility journey today? It's a tricky one, I know.
Yeah. I think I wish I would have maybe opened up a little sooner and talked about it a little sooner, because the only reason I know about Dr. Garcia or Markham Fertility, or the only reason I was able to learn some of the information I did, was by asking questions and
Mm,
by getting advice. Sometimes it was just, people sharing information. Some of the information might not be, you might not take anything from it. Some things people tell you, there might be some value in it. So if I wasn't sharing or talking, it doesn't mean you have to go on social media, but if it helps you to feel less alone. It helps you to decrease some of that shame and stigma, as long as you're sharing it with somebody that I guess would validate it and give you good feelings regarding that. But I wish I would have opened up a little bit sooner. I also think, I'm trying to think, the big one. I grew up, and I'm going to be really honest here. We grew up like, I think alcohol, not, I'm not an alcoholic, I didn't have a problem with alcohol, but all of our friends socialized with alcohol. And
mhm.
especially in my early days when we were trying, like, we were binge drinking on the weekend. I don't think that was helping my fertility or my egg quality in any way, shape, or form, but I didn't know it. I never thought that alcohol could be affecting my egg quality, because if I look back, a lot of the way I was eating, my diet, my lifestyle, all that stuff was pretty good. Now, yes, there's lots of people that drink and get pregnant, and they get pregnant while they're drinking and all that stuff. But I do think that was probably something that impacted me. It impacts your gut, it impacts inflammation, it can impact a lot of things, your sleep. So my husband and I both worked on reducing that. Again, I don't like black or white. I didn't eliminate it entirely, but we tracked to
Mhm.
know what are we doing. And even later in life, we were definitely drinking less. But when we tracked, we were like, oh, we're still having like probably too much. And so we focused on really minimizing that as much as we could.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that I regret. Like if I look back, I wish I would have known how, and that could be marijuana, that could be, there's lots of people doing that kind of stuff, or smoking, or looking at some of those lifestyle pieces a little bit more, and being really honest with like what could, and sometimes you need to talk to a professional, or you talk to somebody about what those things could be.
Yep.
I didn't do that because I was a dietitian, but I also wasn't really, you can be really overwhelmed with, I found it overwhelming to try and seek out the information in the early stages, because it was just another thing you had to do, another thing you had to think about. So I met with other people too, just to, get opinions and get advice. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to look to people that have had success and try to figure out what did you do, right?
Yep.
Can be extremely helpful. I had somebody, because I was sharing, tell me that they had to use a blood thinner
Yep.
for a genetic mutation that I had as well. And I actually had advice from a well-meaning doctor who just said like the evidence would support like not taking a blood thinner. But there was a doctor in Moncton who was giving a blood thinner for this genetic mutation that I had in the first trimester. And had I not have shared about that, or talked about it, or asked about it, that woman would have never given me that information. I may never have known that. So talking about it can help you to get some answers, but you do have to be careful. You have to look into it. You have to kind of validate the information.
Don't take everything at face value.
Yeah, but definitely you can learn from other people that have had success. I think that's why a podcast is great, right? There's little tidbits of information. I think if I would have been doing that a little bit sooner, maybe it wouldn't have taken, as much time. But that's part of why I do what I do now, is to kind of help people maybe get through some of that noise and like really get to the important meaty things that could be impacting their success.
Yeah. Well, Brandy, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for sharing your incredible journey, full of heartbreak and loss and happiness, and what led you to do what you're doing today. Can you tell us where people can find you if they want to look for you?
Yeah, so it's just Be Well with Brandy on Instagram, and I have a website as well, bewellwithbrandy.com.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
and we will put that in the details of the episode once it's uploaded to YouTube, which we always do. Thank you for sharing everything with us and your expertise. Of course, conversations like this remind us that fertility struggles and loss can feel isolating, but none of us are actually truly alone. So if you'd like to connect with Brandy, you can find her at Be Well with Brandy on Instagram. And thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight. We'll see you next week on Fertility Village Live.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks
Thank
for that.
you.
All right.